Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Something to Wrestle with Bruce Prichard. Bruce, what's going on, baby? How are you?
Paul, it's good to see you again.
Paul? Come on now.
Oh, wait a minute. Which one are you? Look, y'all both have a beard.
That's hurtful.
Y'all both have a beard, do you not?
Yeah, but mine's better. You know that.
Yeah, and you got hair.
I do.
And a personality.
Well, there's that.
Ah, hell.
Hey, man, I'm excited to be back with you today. We're talking about one of your great, close, personal friends, the Godfather, a.k.a. the Soul Taker, a.k.a. Kama Mustafa, a.k.a. Papa Shango, a.k.a. Sir Charles, a.k.a. the Good Father, a.k.a. Charles Wright. Whatever you want to call him. He is our subject.
Bear.
Bear, there you go. Little bear action. You know, I've heard that nickname for a long time, but I don't know why he's called Bear. Why would one refer to Godfather as Bear?
Because Undertaker does.
Well, there's that, I guess.
Yeah, so, I mean, every time he would talk to me about him, he was just talking about Bear.
Okay.
So, my first, thing with him was Bear.
So
I thought that was his damn name. I thought he was a Soul Taker, and that was his gimmick name. His real name was just Bear.
Born May 16th, 1961 in Palo Alto, California, grew up in San Diego. In his late teens, he plays basketball and later goes on to the University of Nevada. He's an offensive tackle for the football team there. And what do you know? He decided it might be fun to work in a strip club or two. He does that and then works as a bodyguard and somehow gets into professional wrestling in 1989 when he's 28 years old. I got to tell you, this guy's lived quite a life, man. If you could work as a young man, hey man, you want to work at a strip club? Well, okay. Hey, you want to be a bodyguard? Well, that sounds fun. What about pro wrestling? My man had a pretty fun life before the age of 28, did he not?
I would think so. Probably living others' dreams in real life on the edge of a lightning bolt, if you will, baby.
Daddy. So he's trained by Larry Sharpe at the Monster Factory. After being noticed by Scott Norton and other wrestlers, he's tending to a bar near where they live, and they're filming a Sylvester Stallone movie we might call Over the Top over in Las Vegas. And boy, did he have a unique look. This is a 6'6" tall individual, running over 300 pounds, rocking a mohawk, tattoos, we might even call them sleeves, on both arms. Back before that was really common. He had quite the look. But talk to me about Larry Sharpe and the Monster Factory. We don't talk a lot about Larry or the Monster Factory these days.
You know, Larry Sharpe back in the day, 80s, 90s, was really one of the only commercial wrestling schools that there was.
Right.
You didn't have all these wrestling schools that you have now, or the internet where you could just look up learn how to be a pro wrestler. In 5 easy lessons and $6,000, you too can be a professional wrestler, and we guarantee you that you will have your very first professional wrestling match. And by God, they take their $6,000, give them their 5 lessons, and show them how to roll around in the ring, and by God, they will promote an honest to God live professional wrestling event and put them on it, and you will have your first live professional wrestling match. So they will guarantee all of their promises. But Larry was the first one that kind of went public with wrestling schools. Wrestling schools, they didn't have them. If you wanted to be a wrestler, you would usually have to try and find a wrestler that was willing to take the time and the effort to train you. And a lot of times that meant, traveling the towns, getting to the town early, setting up the ring, and getting in the ring a few hours a day before the matches, if you were lucky. An actual school with a curriculum didn't exist in those days.
Wow.
And Larry, actually had one where Larry was kind of a go-to guy where you could pay him and he would teach you how to wrestle. Later on there was Johnny Rods and guys like that followed in the same footsteps in the Northeast, but pretty much, Larry was probably the most famous of those because he would publicize himself, and he would get out there with the likes of a Bam Bam Bigelow and say, hey, look at me, look at this monster that I found. And a guy like Bear, who, so damn big and such a unique look, that Bear passed a couple of tests. He passed the airport test where no matter where you were, if he walked by, you had to stop and look because he looked like somebody. He was huge.
Yes.
He's huge. And he looks like somebody. But he also passed if Bear wants to give you a look like he's going to rip your neck off.
What's he going to do?
But you're going to feel it.
Yes.
And you're going to be scared.
Yes.
I don't care who you are, how tough you may think you are. Back in the day, and still today, if Charles wants to fucking look at you and intimidate you, he definitely has that ability.
So talk to me about the Monster Factory these days. Do you know anything about Danny Cage or what's happening these days? What's the current reputation or, industry perspective of a place
I have no idea. I met Danny one time in San Antonio, Texas. That's it. I really don't know much else about him.
Well, let's talk about what's next here. We're talking about the Soul Taker down in Memphis. That's where he first gets his start. It's a name given to him based on one of the tattoos on his arm. He debuts on the October 14th, 1989 TV show. His trainer and, I guess now his manager and mouthpiece is Larry Sharpe, tagging along as he defeats a couple of locals, Tim Hall and Chris Frazier, in a handicap match, which makes all the sense in the world. Like, 6'6", 330 pounds. That's a big man anywhere. But in Memphis, a really big man. And about a week later, October 23rd, 1989, he's going to defeat Jerry Lawler for the USWA Unified World title. Of course, Lawler regains the title in a cage match just 2 weeks later. It's important to add context, I guess, to this. Memphis, as a territory, ran the exact same cities every single week. So you had to get pretty creative to have those same people come back over and over and over. So as a result, Lawler lost and won these titles quite a bit. Fair to say?
Sure, fair to say. A couple things, man. Larry would oftentimes, like Bam Bam Bigelow, obviously here with Barrett, would attach himself to a student that he thought has potential.
Yes.
And that, may be a meal ticket for him. So Larry would go and introduce them into a territory and get himself booked as well. So now he's got the guy's money to train him. He's now, I'll get you booked. Probably trying to take a percentage of their pay. And then he would get himself booked as their manager. And he would act as a shoot manager, probably taking their money from the promoters and going, hey, yeah, man, they're screwing you. Whatever. Well, he's taking his cut. But Larry would get himself booked as well. Now, again, that's all hearsay and innuendo with how Larry operated and what have you. But for a guy like Charles to come in, he was green as grass, but he was a big guy.
Yes.
So people would believe that in Memphis, especially where they weren't the biggest guys in the world, and I always have to laugh, when I hear about, oh my God, Memphis was greatest this and the greatest that. And Jerry Lawler, without a doubt, absolutely will go down in one of the top 10 all-time performers ever in this industry.
Yes.
On every level, from working, promos, comment, you name it. Okay? But you also have to remember, Lawler went through a period where on top in Memphis, he worked with Frankenstein.
Yes, he did.
Which was a guy in a Frankenstein mask. He worked with the Mummy, which was a guy dressed up as a mummy. He worked with Dracula. He worked with the Monster, which was just like a regular monster, generic monster thing. And had some of the all-time shittiest matches on the face of God's green earth. Because he would literally just find guys to fit the suit and to fit the costumes.
Right.
And in Godfather here, he didn't need a costume.
No.
He was a walking, talking, living monster
Yes.
that you could believe in and walk by and go, holy shit, man. That guy's scary.
Well, no doubt about that. I mean, what a perspective, you know, I mean, to start as this new, I mean, cause wrestling fans like new, right, Bruce? Like we want new, we want exciting, we want different. And now we've got a monster here in a new gimmick. So yeah, of course he's in line to win the title. And while in Memphis, he would meet for the very first time and become friends with a guy using the name Master of Pain. These days we know him as the Undertaker. They apparently had a horrible match against each other as they're both, well, super green. And they actually get put together in 1990 as Death Express. That's right. Not the Rock and Roll Express, not the Midnight Express, but Death Express. The Undertaker at this point has been called the Punisher.
Do you know why they call him Death Express?
Why's that?
Because every night that they worked as Death Express, they killed those towns.
You're going to tell that to Mr. Calloway later?
You damn right I will.
I thought you would.
I'll call him later on and say, hey, I was thinking about like revamping that Death Express because I understand every time y'all worked as Death Express, you killed the town.
Can't wait to hear how that goes for you.
I ain't scared.
Undertaker, of course, winds up working for New Japan and then lands a gig in WCW as Mean Mark Callis. So that's the end of that team. When did you first hear of Charles Wright? On the independents in Memphis or not until he joins the company?
No, the first time that I think I saw him was when he had his gig in Global in Dallas, the Global Wrestling Federation.
I'm familiar with that.
Yeah, I think that was the first time that I saw him, and I think he was a Soul Taker then.
So we know that he would eventually work in New Japan, go over to Germany, Austria.
That's easy for you to say.
It is. Working for Otto Wands. You know,
Otto Wands.
We haven't spent a lot of time talking about Otto. Did you know him? Did you meet him? Did you work with him?
No. No, I never met, worked with Otto. My brother did. My brother went over and they would do matches in rounds.
Yes.
So he had to work, I think like his first match was in this, and they worked in the same venue in Austria all the time or wherever the hell they were. And Tom goes out and he's got to work with this old timer named Steve Wright. Alex Wright's dad.
Wow. And
Tom gets in there and Tom's, you know, legit tough cat. Beat shit out of me many times. And I'm a 14-time Black Belt Hall of Famer.
Is it up to 14 now?
It will be. I mean,
just 11 checks away. Congratulations.
I mean, just, yeah. It's, you know, do what you got to do. And you too can be an 18-time Black Belt Hall of Famer. But Tom, you know, is having this match. He's trying to work. He's trying to show him he can work.
Sure.
And Steve Wright is just beating the piss out of him. And you have, you know, like these rounds, 3-minute rounds or whatever they are. Then you go back to your corner and you have corner men. And Tom's corner man was big cowboy Scott Hall.
Wow.
And Tom's like, what the fuck? Yeah, I mean, do I owe this guy money? He's stiff as shit. He's like, yeah, fuck, man. You know, you gotta go out and fucking beat the piss out of them right back. Fucking go in and pop him in the mouth. And then they'll fucking loosen up. I said, you stiffen up, they'll loosen the fuck up. And Tom went out and returned
fire.
A few of those shots. And guess what, man? He all of a sudden started working with him.
Ain't that magic?
Yeah. It's like the Japanese would do that too. You go over and see with the gaijins and come in and they'd beat the hell out of you and just see if you're going to hit them back.
Listen, I know over the years you guys have worked with other promotions, you know, whether it was 97 for the Luchadors or New Japan once upon a time. What about the CWA? Was there ever any discussions about, hey, what if we could work with Otto? Or did that never come up?
No. Never came up.
So he goes back to being the Soul Taker in the summer of 91, briefly has that run in Global. did you just see him on the program, or were you actually there in 91?
No, he was gone by the time I got there.
I got you.
And I think he was Papa Shango at that time, because I was talking to Mark and I had left, and Mark was looking for things in different ways to, possibly bring me back. And he says, "Hey man, you may be a good mouthpiece for Bear. They're going to do a voodoo gimmick with him as Papa Shango." And thought that I could be a good mouthpiece for him, because I was obviously looking to try and get back and do whatever the hell I could do. That didn't work out, and Papa Shango was born. Papa Shango was already on his way to WWE by the time that I was in Global.
Well, that WWE debut you're talking about happens after a tryout in December of 1991. It happens under the name Sir Charles, and it's been said that his close friend, The Undertaker, got him the tryout. He said in interviews, he being Mr. Wright, that Vince immediately put him on the payroll. But Vince told him he had a baby face on a monster heel body. That's something that we haven't really talked about before. I guess the idea is we want something to cover his face. Did you feel like Charles had a baby face but a monster heel body? Because that's a great description.
I'm not sure that I would have thought that then, but once you look, if you have a conversation with the Godfather,
yes,
and he smiles, you'll understand.
Yes. It's not very hateable. He's very likable.
Oh yeah. I mean, and he's just a wonderful, wonderful guy. But when he smiles, yeah, it's just like, you just want to hug him.
Yeah, it's infectious. I agree with that.
Yes.
Papa Shango was born. It's a horror style voodoo character, and they're going to cover up that baby face with some face paint. He comes to the ring wearing a black top hat with a skull that would bellow out some smoke. This very dark, eerie music. Man, it's just a fantastic presentation. He debuts on Superstars February 8th, 1992, and he defeats Dale, don't call him Dusty Wolf. Now, I know you're not in the company, but what'd you think of this gimmick the first time you see it? A voodoo persona in pro wrestling.
Absolutely loved it.
I knew it.
I loved it. I was happy for Charles. I didn't even know him, but he was a friend of Undertaker's. That was good enough for me. But the gimmick was like, oh my God, could I have fun with this? And I actually called Vince and gave Vince a ton of just really silly, crazy things to do with the.
Give me an example. What was a crazy idea you had for the Voodoo Man?
Well, I think they actually did one of them where he put a spell on the guy in the ring and made the guy take bumps, and it was basically like wrestling the Invisible Man.
Yes.
And the vomit, the throw up with Warrior.
That was your pitch?
It was like in the middle of the match. Yeah, I mean the vomit, but I wanted it to do it in a match.
Got it.
Where all of a sudden his opponent just starts throwing up uncontrollably because he's doing voodoo on him. Who do that voodoo? Do that voodoo? Do.
That's pretty fun.
Yeah. So I looked at that gimmick and thought, oh my God, this could be a blast.
Well, he's thrust right into the main event scene at WrestleMania 8. He's going to interfere in the main event. Hulk Hogan and Sid Justice. I guess the story was supposed to be that, well, he caused the DQ, but apparently he missed his cue. He's late getting to the ring. To improvise, Sid is going to kick out of Hogan's leg drop. I guess Shango was supposed to break that up, but anyway, there's a DQ because Harvey Whippleman interferes. Is this a legendary timing mishap of, it's the main event of WrestleMania and a pin is supposed to be broken up, but it's not? Or does it not even get that deep?
Yeah, I've never really heard that much about it, even when I came back. So I don't know that it was that big of a deal. But I can imagine looking at the entrance there in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit. I don't care who you are. That's a long ass run.
Yes, it is.
to the ring. So maybe they were anticipating, it wasn't as involved as, hey, anybody maybe want to time how long it'll take Papa Shango to get to the ring during the day?
Well, that's fair.
I mean, it's, I'm not sure that he's running a 4-second, 150-yard dash here.
Right.
It's like, I can only imagine, and I don't know that this is what happened. Again, I wasn't there, but I can only imagine that there was the thought of, okay, we'll send you, and when they do whatever they're going to do, go on this thinking, we're in an arena, you can hit the ring pretty quick, not realizing that you have to stop and get oxygen halfway down to the ring.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So, yeah, I don't know, but it wasn't like this horrible thing that I heard about after I got back. So I don't know that it was, who knows? I wasn't there.
Allegedly, Warrior's supposed to then feud with Sid after WrestleMania, but of course, Sid's fired. So now Shango gets to move up. And instead, he's going to be feuding with the Warrior. And as you suggested, there's this famous moment where he puts a curse on the Warrior. He collapses off the ring apron to the floor. He's holding his stomach. And they show him on TV. He's vomiting backstage. There's a medic helping him. He actually throws up on Chief Jay Strongbow. Another time he causes that black goo to drip out of the Ultimate Warrior's forehead during an interview.
That was Warrior's greatest promo.
Oh, some stupid shit, wasn't it, Bruce?
That was great shit.
Well, listen, it was fun. I'm not arguing that.
It was.
Do you think it would have been better had Hogan done it instead of Warrior, or would it have been the same?
I think that Hulk would have put it over the top, frankly. And by that, Hulk kind of could have done it with an over the top and a wink.
Yes.
While Warrior was, didn't let you in.
Right.
And so I would have loved to have seen Papa and Hogan.
Well, they tried some interesting stuff with Shango in this era. Like, he would, in squash matches, set his opponent's feet on fire or their boots on fire. He would put folks in body bags. I mean, they were trying some interesting stuff, were they not?
Yeah, and again, it was fun stuff that you could, kids were afraid of him. For real, little kids would look at him and be like just shaking and shit because they're afraid that Papa Shango is going to put a spell on them.
Right.
I go back to the James Bond movie, Live and Let Die.
Yes.
And it opens up with that voodoo scene and all that stuff. And then they later on do the chicken blood and the chicken blood and the chicken feet and all that stuff, man. That sticks in my head still today. It's just absolutely terrifying. Your dad was a young boy when that movie came out with Roger Moore and all that. And I remember watching it at the moving pictures show at the theater. Alameda 4.
Is Papa Shango the character you wish you could have worked with the most? When you're on the outside looking in, that feels like the most Bruce character of all.
At that time? Oh God, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think during that time, yes, Papa Shango, and then, possibly Flair doing the Bobby Heenan Jr. stuff. Yeah, I would have loved to work with Papa.
Really, really fun stuff here. Warrior and Papa Shango were the main event for one half of the house shows in the summer of 92. In this era, we're running two shows. The other main event is Savage and Flair, but they never really have a televised blow-off of this feud. It's pretty much just quietly dropped as Warrior is then inserted into the title picture with Savage, leading up to SummerSlam at Wembley, and eventually he's going to, of course, form the Ultimate Maniacs with Randy Savage after You Return.
Yeah.
Isn't that a little weird though, that we never really got a payoff for Shango Warrior? It feels like we should have.
I'm not sure they had a whole lot of chemistry.
Well, it just feels like after we're vomiting, we got stuff coming out of our head. As a fan,
Warrior was afraid to face him.
Well,
straight up.
There's always that.
Yeah. You ever think of that? You didn't think of that, did you?
Shango is actually going to defeat El Matador at SummerSlam in Wembley.
Arriba!
It's not part of the pay-per-view broadcast. It's shown on primetime a few weeks later. When you come back to the company, are you chomping at the bit to work with Shango, or are you more like, thank God I got my job, let's not fuck this up?
All the above. To me, it was like the fun, cool shit. It kind of reaches a point too where what else can you do?
Yeah.
And you had to really study voodoo to try and come up with what that was going to be next.
Did you really study voodoo?
Well, if you have to, you have to.
How does one study voodoo, Bruce?
You get a voodoo book and you read it, and then you practice a lot.
Where does one get a voodoo book?
At voodoobooksareus.com.
Oh no, back then you went to the actual retail brick and mortar.
Yeah,
store.
it was brick and mortar, man. And there's still a brick and mortar down there in Port Arthur, Natchez, Texas.
All right. Well, there's that. So you did a little studying.
That's actually a real place too. Well, it's actually Port Arthur and then Port Natchez Groves, but they're kind of one and the same, interchangeable. And they do have a voodoo shop there.
Old Papa got a few shots at Bret Hart when Bret became the WWF champion in October, including the very rare November 92 Saturday night's main event on Fox. He's going to lose cleanly to the Sharpshooter, of course. And then when Nails is fired in December of 92, which is a whole nother story, Shango is put into the emergency replacement spot for all of Nails' house shows against The Undertaker. It's interesting to see, man. It's almost like you guys don't really have anything super exciting or fun creatively for him, but hey, we know in a pinch, if Bret needs an opponent for Fox, Shango will get over. Hey man, Nails is out. He's supposed to be taking on The Undertaker. Who can we count on to have a good match with Taker? Well, Papa Shango can do it. That's quite a vote.
Shango was a star.
It's quite a vote of confidence for a relatively new performer, is it not?
Yeah, he was a star. He was a star and was portrayed as one, and I think people accepted him in that role.
It starts to peter out after that, unfortunately. He only lasts about 30 seconds in the 93 Royal Rumble match. He comes in at number 3. He's injured, so I guess that's the reason he's not in there very long, but it starts to feel like he's losing steam to the point of losing to El Matador in the dark match of WrestleMania 9. And he's not doing much on TV besides one-off matches with the likes of Typhoon, Kamala, or Jim Duggan. But he does get a run with the USWA title again through the crossover era of the spring in 93 and I guess the summer in 93 too. He beats Lawler on May 3rd, loses it to Owen Hart on June 21st, and he's a member of the roster through October of 93. His final matches are on the WWF tour of Israel and Europe that month. And then it feels like, well, he's not long for this world. Did you ever push for anything with Shango in 93, or was the bloom off the rose at that point?
I think the bloom was off the rose, and, it was a good example of a character that needed to be put on the shelf for a while. That to try and keep that character sustained and the believability of that character, it was fun in a time where those characters were just more acceptable. But to try and sustain that for any length of time, I don't think it was really sustainable.
Do you think that's true of most supernatural characters, or this one in particular was different?
I do think that the supernatural character, if you will, has a shelf life. Yes.
I mean, I think that's fair to say. I don't think that's stepping out of school to say that. Now, in real life, Papa Shango has said in interviews he's going through a pretty rough divorce at the time, and The Undertaker was actually the guy who suggested, hey man, why don't you go home for a while? Yeah, this isn't something we talk about a lot here on the show, Bruce, but back then especially, Now, of course, things change, but the schedule could be rather brutal. How important was it for guys in that era to be able to raise their hand and say, as unpopular and unfavorable as it may be, man, I need to take a few days here or there?
Well, it's life.
Yeah.
And that happened all the time. Rick Steamboat did it in 1987. He wanted to go home and be with his wife and kid, and that was his choice.
Yeah.
That was what he needed to do for his health
Family
and his
and
head.
Circumstance. Yeah.
Yeah. So Shango doing that was the best thing for him to do at this time.
He works a few indie shows in late 93 and throughout 94. He still uses the Papa Shango gimmick, and he even goes back to work with Otto over in Europe. And then at the end of 94, we start to see something kind of cool. There's vignettes for the Supreme Fighting Machine on WWF programming. And it's almost like he's presented as a shoot fighter or boxer all rolled into one. It's important to remember this is in the era of the UFC first becoming a thing. What'd you think of the gimmick? Whose idea was this? The Fighting Machine.
It was kind of a hybrid, and it was probably, it was another side of Charles Wright, who really enjoyed MMA. He enjoyed boxing.
Yes.
He did box. He enjoyed MMA. He enjoyed that mixed martial arts world. And it was a different presentation of the same guy. And a more real thing, not doing all the supernatural Papa Shango stuff. Just grew his hair in some and had a mohawk, rode motorcycles, and just look. He looked like a badass.
Yeah,
he is a badass.
Yes.
So try with this different presentation where UFC was just starting and people were getting exposed to the MMA fighters in the MMA world. Bring them into our world. Different presentation. Go away and learn the new hold.
He's immediately paired with Ted DiBiase in the $1 Million Corporation. At WrestleMania 11, he's going to steal the Undertaker's urn from Paul Bearer. And he's saying he's going to melt it down into a bling necklace, which of course he did. This is, I don't know, not nearly as exciting to me as Papa Shango. I just didn't feel like him and DiBiase were a fit. Should he have been on his own, or did you like the pairing with DiBiase?
I like the pairing with DiBiase because I don't think that promos was one of Charles's strong suits,
right?
Especially at that time. So to be able to give him instant credibility, put him with somebody that has credibility in Ted, let him do the talking, and also somebody that could help lay out everything for him and help him embellish and create that new character.
Well, speaking of new characters, I do want to ask about The Undertaker, because I know he's pals with him, but when he comes in as Kama Mustafa and he's essentially a new character, one would wonder, why is The Undertaker working with him? Now, I understand he was like your default guy. Whether it was King Kong Bundy or Giant Gonzalez or whatever. Hey, if we need a program item that people will care about, just add Taker. But is this one that you guys suggested, or does Undertaker say, hey man, let me work with Charles?
So let me get this straight. You just put Charles Wright in the same category as Giant Gonzalez and King Kong Bundy in 1994.
I'm pointing out that you booked them all against The Undertaker, and he doesn't necessarily.
Well, about John Cena against The Undertaker too, and
well, I didn't think we were allowed to talk about current stuff.
Kane,
okay,
stuff like that. John Cena was in like 2003 or 4.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, it was.
Well, not at WrestleMania.
John Cena peed on his bike.
Was it shoot pee?
In a cemetery.
Was it working pee or shoot pee?
I think at least one take was shoot pee.
Wow, how about that?
Yeah, how about that? I know,
Seriously,
right?
Chat me up here. Did Undertaker pitch working with him, or is this something?
I think it was a combination, and it was an opportunity for Taker to have somebody new. His combo was new coming in, and it's a new opponent for him, and seemed to fit. It was two big bastards going at it. And it helped that they were friends.
He's got a major role in 95, at least in the King of the Ring tournament. He surprisingly goes to a time limit draw with Shawn Michaels. And then he cost The Undertaker his match versus Mabel. Was Vince higher on the Kama character than he was Papa Shango, as best you can tell? I know you weren't there for Papa. I'm just trying to understand.
I think Vince was high on Charles Wright, just in general, and really liked Charles and wanted Charles to succeed.
Well, he does. Undertaker works with him at SummerSlam 95 in a casket match. And not long afterwards, he's taken off TV. He's only working the house shows. And he has one final appearance at the 1996 Royal Rumble match. And then he sort of quietly disappears from the company again. Were there big plans for Kama and it just didn't catch on? Or why is he coming off TV before he decides to ease on out of here?
I really don't remember. I want to say it was injuries, just kind of nagging injuries that he needed to take care of. But I really don't remember.
Well, we should talk about 95. This is the formation of the now infamous, if you will, Bone Street Krew, or BSK. Backstage, this is a group of guys who get along really well. They hang out a lot, and they play with bones, aka dominoes. And I guess that's how the Bone part of Bone Street Krew came together. There's members over different periods of time here, but loosely it's The Undertaker, Godfather, Rikishi, Yokozuna, the Godwins, Paul Bearer, Mr. Fuji, Savio Vega, Crush. What's this contingent like? We've heard a lot about guys like the Click. We haven't spent a lot of time here on the show or just in the online conversation at large about BSK. Is this like a motorcycle club? What would you relate this to?
Now, I know that you look at me and you instantly think Bruce has got to be in an MC.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
you're probably like Hell's Angels or Banditos or Mongols or something like that.
Something. Look at you.
Because I got that look, right?
Just a straight badass.
Yeah. Motorcycle club, for fuck's sake. It was a group of guys that liked hanging out with one another, that they traveled together, they hung out together, and played a lot of dominoes. Went out and drank, every night they're on the road, and we're just best of friends.
Right.
That's what it was. I have never been a part of a motorcycle club. I've been in a Hell's Angels club one time in my life. And, it's kind of like a little more wide open VFW hall.
In your opinion, what was first, BSK or the Click?
I really think they kind of developed along the same time frame.
Right.
I don't think that one was, I think that they kind of both just evolved around the same time before, anybody really noticed.
Do you remember there ever being any problems between the two groups?
No. I don't think that the Click would, venture over there. I think they just kind of each did their own thing.
So let's talk about their rumor and innuendo. I don't know if you've heard this before, but allegedly the former Papa Shango agreed to join WCW in 1996. He was supposed to be the enforcer for the NWO, and he gave a verbal agreement. But ultimately, he's talked out of that decision by a friend of the show named Ron Simmons. Instead, stupid-ass Virgil got the spot. Do you remember hearing about this?
No, I never heard about that.
Isn't that crazy to think what it could have been? Him over there, no Godfather?
That would be a sad life, man, because a life without Godfather is just no life to be lived.
Totally agree. He does a couple of indie shows in mid-96, but he doesn't wrestle at all until returning to the company on June 16th, 1997. He joins the Nation of Domination, and he actually pins The Undertaker in a tag match that night. Was there ever any discussion about bringing back a new, edgier version of Papa Shango here?
Not Papa Shango, no. I think that the feeling was, especially in this time frame, to kind of stay away from, some of the more gimmicky gimmicks.
Right. Well, we're off to the races. I mean, you're going to see Kama Mustafa join the Nation of Domination. Farouk is leading. Of course, Kama's in tow here. So's D'Lo Brown. Briefly, Ahmed Johnson. I mean, but pinning the Undertaker, pretty big fucking deal, especially on your new night in and a new group, and he's pinning the Undertaker. Shows you what kind of a friend Mr. Mark Calloway was, right?
Well, it's a good way to get him back over and bring him in and let him have some impact, so that it's like, all right, he is a force to be reckoned with, and gives that stamp as well to the Nation of Domination. The Nation
of Domination. So Ahmed gets kicked out of the group. He's replaced by Rocky Maivia in August. Mark Henry joins the group later in December of 97. Kama's still here, but it's almost like he's kind of just a body at this point. Now, we know that's not going to last for long because, well, there's going to be a transition that changes his whole career. But as a part of the Nation, I mean, he's definitely in the background, right?
Well, not everybody can be in the front.
I'm not arguing that.
But I think, again, it was a 4-man group.
Yes.
And it's, you ever see the Four Seasons? You know who the Four Seasons is? Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons?
Yeah.
Jersey Boys?
Yeah.
And so the bass player says, hey, if you're in the Beatles in your Ringo, I mean, you get the choice, might as well just go home. He didn't want to be Ringo. He didn't want to be the fourth Beatle. I don't know what the hell I'm saying here, but the point is Ringo is a Beatle. And him and Paul are the only two surviving Beatles right now.
Right.
So it's okay to be a Beatle. To me, he wasn't the fourth Beatle. A lot of people, Ringo was the favorite. To a lot of people, Kama was the favorite. I got off on the Jersey Boys somewhere over there.
I appreciate that. I mean, it was a hard left, but you made it work.
Sherry, Sherry baby, Sherry, Sherry baby. I could sing I'm a multitude of generational songs.
Farouk later gets kicked out of the group. The Rock's going to take over as the leader. Eventually, Owen Hart joins up for the final incarnation of the Nation. What's your favorite version of the Nation, Bruce?
I think Rock.
Yep.
Ron.
Yep.
Kama.
Yep.
And D'Lo.
I like that one too. Slowly throughout 1998, Kama, easy for me to say.
Karma will get you, Kama.
It will. Starts to be referred to as the Godfather. Does the Godfather pitch the idea? I mean, does Charles pitch the idea of the Godfather gimmick or character or name? How do you remember that all coming to be?
Well, Godfather was Godfather. I mean, you look at Godfather's previous life, and he worked in gentlemen's establishments. He was manager, part owner of one, and he was kind of like the Godfather in Vegas. That's what that's who he is. So the Godfather character was just an extension of his ordinary self. And, actually probably amped down a little bit.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Promise.
Boy, I don't know how else to ask this. Did Vince understand the character? Did he know what a pimp was? Did he understand the character, or is this past?
Oh, he absolutely understood what a pimp was.
Okay.
I'm not sure he understood what a fatty was. Roll
a fatty for this pimp daddy.
I'm not sure he understood that,
but he knew what a pimp was.
Yeah. Huggy Bear.
So I love you for that. He goes to the ring.
Starsky and Hutch. How many of our listeners are going to get that?
I got it.
Yeah.
So he goes to the ring with a cigar and a hat, referring to himself as a pimp. And then on July 27th, 1998, he starts bringing with him a different group of women every single week down the ringside. You might even call it the Hoe Train. Tell us about the Hoe Train and how excited you were to have these hoes around.
Well, a lot of this, stemmed from a documentary. I think it was on HBO at the time. It was called Pimps Up, Hoes Down. And a lot of the machination of The Godfather came from that documentary that followed a bunch of pimps to a pimp convention.
Oh, I know this very well.
Okay.
Hookers at the point. Pimps up, hoes down, Mr. White
Pimps up,
folks.
hoes down.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Godfather was the ultimate pimp. He was, they were portrayed as these mythical beings almost that were revered in their world. And the women that they pimped were referred to as hoes, not whores.
Oh.
Like your mother.
Okay.
It was hoes.
All right.
Okay. And so it was in pop culture. Everybody was talking about pimps up, hoes down. And, pimping ain't easy.
By the way, this is a TV documentary here in America, in the U.S. It aired on HBO. I think it was called America Undercover. But it happened in 1998. And the Players Ball is the big party you're talking about. Maybe the most famous pimp in the whole movie is Don Magic Wand. And, of course, we all know Ice-T. And I'm just saying, it was a revolutionary documentary at the time. And I didn't know that was the inspiration for the Godfather character.
Yeah.
My favorite is a character.
Ice-T, who was, mainstream rapper.
Yes, yes.
Mainstream television star.
Yes.
Movie star. So, Hollywood embraced it.
Uh-huh.
I thought, this is great shit. Very colorful characters in that whole documentary. It was from the pimps to the hoes.
The white guy who called himself Mr. White Folks.
Yeah.
Is one of the great characters of all time. I would be honored to be referred to as Mr. White Folks. What a great name.
Yes, but in 2022, we can't necessarily do those things.
But I'm saying in 1998, that was a fucking hilarious name.
Yes, it was.
Tremendous.
But the whole thing was just a peek inside that culture that people were fascinated by.
Listen, these days, you couldn't even say hose. I don't know why we were comfortable saying hose in 1998, but we were. Hypothetically, Bruce, where did you get these hoes from every week? Were you
Hoes
one of the...
us.
Okay. So were you out scouting these hoes?
No.
Did you source these hoes?
I did not.
Did you pay the hoes?
I did not.
What did you do with the hoes? Did you do anything with the hoes?
I sent them to the ring. Go!
Was Stephanie ever concerned about your working environment that was now littered with hoes?
No.
So no hoes ever got you in trouble?
No.
That's good to know. Do you know if any of the other guys had troubles at home because of the hoe circumstances, the hoe situations?
No. Not that I'm aware of.
Feels like somebody at home would have been
and most of them were from modeling agencies.
Right.
They were
model hoes.
Especially in the beginning, they were models or actresses you'd get from an agency.
And every now and again, you ran across one that turned into a wrestler. How about that?
Hey, there you go. Or you bring in a wrestler to portray.
Is this, I'm not even kidding when I say this, is this a Russo idea? Is this a McMahon idea? Where do the hoes, who deserves credit for the hoes?
I think Godfather.
Wow. That's fantastic.
Because a pimp's got to have hoes.
So this pimp winds up getting to the semifinals of the Brawl for All that summer. He eventually loses to Bart Gunn, who's the winner. I have a feeling when Godfather first hears about this concept, he's one of the first guys to say, "Oh, I'm in."
Only had to ask him once.
Yeah, I would imagine. Let's talk about how he winds up losing to Bart Gunn. And then eventually the Nation is disbanded in the fall of 1998. And he becomes a lot more colorful. Pretty much a different costume every week. And he starts with the more memorable catchphrases, and he even starts with the gimmick of offering the ladies up to his opponent before each match. And some take him up on that. That's pretty fun creatively. Is Godfather a part of all that, or is this just creative handed down from the back?
No, Godfather was definitely a part of all of it, and had his ideas and how that character should be portrayed. And you know, he was really into it, because I say this was as close to Bear as you could get.
Just really, really fun stuff here. It can't be emphasized enough just how over this Godfather character was during the era. I mean, just once the music starts, and I feel like sometimes we underestimate the power of music, but just that opening, the pop is huge.
Yeah.
And the crowd just catches on to the catchphrases immediately. I mean, it's just, this is a perfect moment in time. I don't know that it would have worked in almost any other era, but it's fantastic, is it not?
Again, yeah, it definitely wouldn't work in today's era, but at the time, it was a fun character. You know, it wasn't offensive,
right?
And it was fun. Those who got it, man, it was about having fun and it being a party.
Well, it was, man, super fun. I mean, even the finish is called the Hoe Train. It's a running splash into the corner. He even wins the IC title in April of '99. He beats Goldust. He's supposed to lose the title to Owen at Over the Edge. Unfortunately, we know what happens that night. That doesn't happen. So he loses it to Jeff Jarrett 2 nights later. And he's always kind of been an interesting choice because A, he was a big fella. And B, that belt's always kind of been known as like, amongst the quote unquote smart marks, this is where you get the best matches. So it's always on guys like Brett or Sean or Razor or Perfect or whatever. But,
Godfather.
Well, and then there's the Godfather. Do you see a difference in all those type performers in the Godfather character, or is it all just kind of the same to you?
It's all the same to me.
Just based on a character as a character, and that's it?
Yep.
Yeah, I get that. So listen, we talked about some of the more famous folks who were a part of the Godfather persona. I want to mention a couple of ladies made their debut as hoes. Lita and Victoria, a couple of Hall of Famers here, started out being part of the Hoe Train. How about that?
Well, they were wrestlers before that.
Sure.
And they came in to be introduced as hoes. We needed some working hoes.
Well, shoot hoes, working hoes, either way, all we know is hoes knows that Godfather's over. So much so they had a Hoe Train match. Not a lumberjack match, a Hoe Train match, Bruce. At the Georgia Dome, October of 1999. Back in Paul Bosch's day, would he have ever predicted there would have been a Hoe lumberjack match, do you think?
Yeah, you know what? Even in Paul's wildest dreams, where he would say, you know, Jim Ross with his damn slack night and all this other stuff. By God, next thing you know, we're going to have a Hoe Train match. Yeah, I don't think that was on the agenda.
I don't think so either. Godfather's biggest win comes in a non-title match over the WWF champion Triple H on SmackDown, March of 2000. A little interference in part from the Big Show, but he's kind of like, boy, I hate to use the term mid-card. Maybe the better term is attraction, because I don't think anybody necessarily thought Godfather was going to win the world title, but boy, they sure were happy to see him. They were excited to see him. They were excited to see his promo, to see his match, to see the whole presentation. But it's not one necessarily they're like, man, I can't wait to see him in a Hell in a Cell with the Undertaker. Is attraction the right word? Because he added so much to the show, but not necessarily in like a serious threat for the title kind of way.
Yeah, I think he was a fun let me up.
Yes.
It's an opportunity for the crowd to go, Hoe Train! And do the sayings and kind of get behind him. He was very popular, but no, I don't think anybody wanted him to be champion.
No, I agree with that. I mean, it's totally different circumstance, but it's just interesting to think that, you know, there's some guys who it's hard to see in that light, And then other guys you could think, well, it doesn't matter if he's on the show. But the Godfather character was so over. But buddy, it's not just over with fans. It's over with detractors. I remember there was lots of pushback from some of the other organizations, like the Parent Teacher Council. Boy, they did not like the Godfather character. Fair to say?
No, they didn't really like anything. I think that they were allergic to fun.
Well, I know it was rough. I know that. And I know that from what I understand, there was even, because they made such a big stink, perhaps there were threats of sponsors dropping out. All I know is eventually the Godfather became the Good Father in July of 2000. He's going to lose a match to Bull Buchanan of the Right to Censor group, which was headed at the time by Stevie Richards. And the stipulation of the match is he has to give up pimping if he lost. So this is a big time character, but we're going to switch him up, and certainly we like to keep things fresh. But was this a response to all the complaints from the PTC?
It was, and it was the ability to portray characters as how we saw them. And the PTC, I believe the guy's name was L. Brent Bozell. As I said, I think he was allergic to fun. But they were the heels in our world.
Right.
And we portrayed them as we saw them. And they became the heels of our audience overall. We made characters because these people were tremendous heels in real life. So when you make characters around them, the audience obviously really gravitated to that and understood who the heels were because it was just so easy to see. No one likes to be told what you can watch and what you can do, what you can wear, how you can act.
Yeah.
Nobody likes that.
I agree.
So you have a character that is constantly telling you what's good for you. Right. This is what you should like. This is how you should act. This is what you should watch. Don't watch that. These people were very overzealous in their quest to get us off the air and tried everything to do so, and including slander and just falsehoods about what it was that we were doing. And when people actually watch it, they're like going, okay, it's entertainment. And by the way, it's television. If you don't like it, you can change the channel.
Have you heard about the new flavored air category that's quickly becoming the leading alternative to vaping and smoking? It's a whole new movement towards better habits, led by the sponsor of today's video, Fume. Fume is an award-winning flavored air device. Now, flavored air isn't like vaping. If vapor was compared to sticky soda, Fume cores are closer to herbal teas. Fume has lots of delicious flavors to choose from, like crisp mint and orange vanilla. And with flavored air, you can satisfy your oral fixation through a passive diffusion system that utilizes no electronics, no vapor, and no combustion. You see, Fume draws flavor to your mouth. Fume fills the void ditching a bad habit can leave. And you still have something to reach for. Fume is not a vape. There's no vapor. You can use it anywhere. It's also no nicotine, so it's not addictive. There's non-toxic flavors. It's really a guilt-free alternative. And there's no batteries, so you'll never need to charge it. And by the way, it looks awesome. You're going to like the weighted, high-quality design. It's just fun to fidget with. It's going to calm your anxiety with magnets and snaps and clicks. Fume is continuously investing in third-party studies to ensure the safety of their products. By the way, Fume is backed by doctors here in the United States. Now, the core flavors, this is where it's a game changer for me. My wife was blown away with crisp mint. She thought it was way fresher than she ever imagined. I let my dad try. He and mom really love the orange vanilla. Fume has served over 300,000 customers, and you can be the next success story. For a limited time, use our code WRESTLE, and you'll get a free gift with your journey pack. Just head to tryfume.com. That's tryfum.com and use the code WRESTLE, or scan the QR code on your screen, and you'll get a free gift with your order today. That's tryfume.com with the promo code WRESTLE.
So I wasn't a big fan of the PTC or Mr. Bozell, but Teach their own.
Godfather has said in later years that this Good Father era is the least enjoyable time of his career, and he almost quit over it. Did you ever talk to him about this era?
Yeah, it was horrible. I mean, but it's at the same time, I think that he had fun with the absurdity of it. That you had the Godfather who's now the good father, who now has to, disparage everything that he had done. You saw the inner strife of him fighting to actually admit this and say what they wanted him to say. So I think at the end, I think he got into it, but no, it wasn't. It's not fun sometimes portraying somebody as horrible as is what we envision those people as.
Let's talk a little bit about WrestleMania X7. Goodfather and Bull Buchanan actually hold the tag titles, but they're disbanded shortly after WrestleMania 17. And it feels like WrestleMania 17 is kind of the end, because now you start this invasion angle, and now there's this new influx of talent. And as a result, well, some of the guys who we've seen a lot of, we're going to have to see less of, and Godfather becomes one of them. Do you think the RTC thing was really the beginning of the end for him, or was it more of the invasion? It just made it tough to get all the TV time for all these guys.
I think more than anything, probably a combination of both, but more than anything, I think the PTC kind of put a damper, at least for a time, on some of our racier programming and racier characters. So it became more and more difficult to be able to portray that character, whether he was fun-loving or not. So yeah, it was, you had to wonder, is this something that's going to flame the fires again?
Well, a toned down version of the Godfather briefly makes a comeback starting at the O2 Royal Rumble. The hose at this point is just referred to as his escort service, but eventually near the end of O2, Godfather is released and he sort of retires for several years. He does make occasional wrestling appearances on the Indies in 07. He uses the name Pimp Father, and I guess he had a really incredible 3-year run here. He's made several one-off cameo appearances back in WWE over the years. He's always one of the favorite characters to have something come up. Maybe it's convincing Viscera to dump Lillian Garcia. Maybe he's trying to convince Teddy Long and Ron Simmons at Teddy's wedding to go back to the old party days. He even comes back for the 2013 Royal Rumble. He's thrown out pretty quickly by Dolph Ziggler, but he's even on hand a couple of years ago at the Undertaker's retirement ceremony, Survivor Series 2020. Of course, several years ago now, I think 2016. He's inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame by APA. He was there at such a hot time and involved in WrestleMania main events. Well deserved. Agree?
Absolutely. And I think that, his career and characters spanned, a generation that people will always remember. They remember Papa Shango and they remember the Godfather.
He eventually moves back to Vegas. He starts to run and manage the Cheetah Strip Club, I think, for many years. And I think he was one of the owners and ultimately sold out. But man, what a fun character. What a fun run in wrestling. And what a fun follow on social media. Just the life of the party. You and I had the opportunity at the end of 2018 to go overseas and do a bit of a tour for Fight Forever over there. And he was just a blast, man. What a great dude. And still doing his thing, still living his life, still having a lot of fun. Some things never change in that regard.
Pimping ain't easy, dog.
Adam Arpin wants to know, if Charles Wright hadn't gotten the Godfather character over as well as he did, do you think there would have ever been any more thought to bringing back the Papa Shango character with Kane, Mankind, or even the Ministry of Darkness?
Mankind is interesting. I think that could have been a lot of fun from the dungeon vignettes with Mankind and George the Rat. God damn, they had to breathe for me, little breath and puffy. But yeah, that could have been fun. I don't know. But yes, I think that Papa Shango in spurts definitely could have carried on.
Patrick Ruth wants to know, did Russo come up with the hoe train?
You know, I think that as far as the hoes go, the expert on that subject matter would be the Godfather himself.
Drew Landry wants to know, what did these characters lack to hold a championship? I could see Papa Shango as the Creole voodoo type with sensational Sherry, who could torture a white meat baby face, but it never really seemed to work out. Was there more meat left on the bone, do you think, with Papa Shango?
I don't know. As I said, I don't think that it could have sustained. I don't think it could have sustained much longer than it did because you had all the tricks had been done. Now, if you were to bring it back 10 years later, I think for a nostalgia act, people would have been happy to go back to some of the voodoo magic.
Maybe in terms of the old territory days where you're here for 6 or 8 or 10 weeks or whatever, you go somewhere else and then you come back next year sort of deal, but not 52 weeks a year.
Called Rectamundo.
Adam Leeson says, did any of the boys ever try to ride the old hoe train? It's quite the question. Do you remember there being a circumstance where you had to go to some of these boys who will be boys and say, damn it? Or is that not the case?
Well, it wasn't the case because they usually had handlers with them. Like I said, we used agencies and they would always have handlers that would be very protective of the girls. And who knows? Boys and girls will be boys and girls. So what they did on their own time, Conrad, that's what they do on their own time.
Roll tide on that. Hey, another question here from Adam. He had 3 good ones. In order of who could kick his ass, how would rate Bruce the members of the nation? So number 1's Ron.
They could all kick my ass.
Yeah, but in order, Ron would kick your ass the most. Then Kama second.
Yeah, I don't think I could put up much of a fight against any of them.
Oh no, I mean they all win for sure. Last question from Adam. Has Bruce ever visited the Godfather's former establishment in Las Vegas?
Yes, I have. I've been to Cheetah's and I haven't been out to the Spearmint Rhino yet, but yeah, Cheetah's definitely.
FF Handbook wants to know, when creating Right to Censor to stick it to the Parent-Teacher Council, was there a plan to go back to the Godfather and Val Venus, or did you guys think this was quote unquote killing off their gimmicks because they had just simply ran their course?
Originally, I think the hope was to get back to where we came from.
Right.
However, I think that the PTC had just stirred up enough that it wasn't worth, trying to push it anymore.
Here's one from Sammy. Was Papa Shango a ripoff of Rasta the Voodoo Man from the GWF?
Highly unlikely.
Nicola wants to know, if the Papa Shango character was in the Attitude Era, what storylines do you think he could have been involved in? That's interesting to think about, dropping a character from 91, 92 right on into 99.
Maybe could have made Stone Cold Steve Austin throw up all over Chief Strongbow. Or oh my God.
Here it is.
He could have thrown up all over Gerald Briscoe.
That would have been even better.
Because Jerry has the queasiest stomach on the face of God's green earth.
Next week, Bruce, we're going to be talking about the Bushwhackers and how you can turn barbed wire heel badasses into all-time babyface characters. I hope friend of the show, Casio Kid, listening. They were his favorite tag team as a kid. I couldn't believe that. I thought for sure he would say Steiner Brothers, Demolition, the Hart Foundation, the Rockers, something. Nope. The damn Bushwhackers. Long time coming.
Damn Bushwhackers. They were great.
They were fantastic. I loved them. We're going to talk about them and licking kids and all kinds of stuff next week here on the show. By the way,
talk about the sheep herders too?
Yeah, we gotta, right?
Okay, don't get hot.
How you turn this badass heel team
in Mid-South.
Well, we'll talk about that next week right here on the show.
You're getting hot. I can tell.
By the way, you got all these shows early and ad-free over at adfreeshows.com, including Title Chase about the WCW World Title with Dave Milliken, the protege of Reggie Parks, who just passed away 1 year ago. We also sit down with Bill Apter for an episode of The Insiders to talk about some stories you've never heard before about Hulk Hogan and Vince McMahon. What about Eric Bischoff? A couple of days ago, he went nose to nose with Raven. I can't believe that's a real thing, but they chopped it up. You're going to love it. Tony Schiavone's got a live Q&A coming up. Jake Roberts is going to watch Halloween Havoc 92. It all happens at adfreeshows.com. We appreciate you guys tuning in to Something to Wrestle this week. Bruce, thanks for showing up. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. And shout out again, since, I shouted out to him before, but shout out to Piff the Magic Dragon, class guy who heard our shout out and reached out to me. So now to just complete my bucket list, when I finally do go out to Vegas in December, we're going to finish up strong with Aerosmith.
Yep.
Night before that, got Rod White retirement show.
Love that.
Then you got ZZ Top, my good close dear personal friends ZZ Top. You got Elwood and Billy and Frank out there. Going to go see them. I'm psyched up about that. And Piff the Magic Dragon. You know Piff the Magic Dragon. Right?
I do. I know him very well.
You probably heard of his older brother,
Puff.
Steve.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
That's
great. Good shit.
Great. I love it.
It's gold, Connie. I'm telling you, it's gold. But Piff reached out. So, hey, if you get a chance to see Piff, go see Piff, because he's it's like on my bucket list. I can hardly wait. It is. I know.
I saw him here in Huntsville. He's fantastic.
Yes. I mean, my God, it's absolutely, I'm absolutely most excited about that. And I'm going to continue talking about it until I go and get to see it.
Well, we hope you guys are going to be talking about our Bushwhackers episode. If you got a question, ask it over on Twitter at Prichard Show. That's at Prichard Show. If you're trying to introduce a new listener to our program, maybe they want to have a little sample before they dive right in, send them over to YouTube. It's youtube.com/something to wrestle. Of course, you can tweet us as well. I am at Hey, it's Conrad. He is at Bruce Prichard, and we are out of time. We'll see you next week talking all things Bushwhackers right here on Something to Wrestle with Bruce Prichard.
Rock on!
SaveWithConrad.com.
My name is Doug Gustafson, and we are from Columbus, Ohio. First learned of Conrad through his podcast network. I'm a big 83 Weeks fan. Probably got into a little bit more credit card debt than what we wanted to during the course of the pandemic. We wanted to get rid of some of that. My wife and I had luckily bought the house many years ago and had quite a bit of equity built up in it. We are looking to actually redo our bathroom, things around the house that we wanted to do with the other equity that we have left over. We've been talking about refinancing forever, and I finally just took the plunge and called the number, got a hold of him, and from start to finish, it was just fantastic. I had Diane within the day. The communication with her was fantastic. The process moved quicker than I could have ever hoped. My name's Doug Gustafson from Columbus, Ohio. I ended up saving $800 a month with Save with Conrad, and am able to also update our bathroom.
NMLS number 2129, Equal Housing Lender.
SaveWithConrad.com.